You ever sit in a room and realize everybody's already decided who you are before you even open your mouth? That's where it all started for me, sitting in the back of a Harvard lecture hall, heart pounding, hands shaking while Professor Harrington, yeah, that Professor Harrington basically told the world I was wasting everyone's time. He had this way of shutting you down, so clean, so final, you almost believed it yourself. But I wasn't there to make friends. I was there to do what nobody else thought was possible. Now back up a sec before Harvard. Before the headlines, I was just Amara Johnson from Dorchester, Boston, 12 years old, living with my dad in a cramped apartment above the laundromat. My mom passed when I was 9, and since then it's been me, dad, and a bunch of numbers. Some kids have imaginary friends. I had prime numbers whispering in my ear at night. And honestly, math just made sense in a world where a lot of things didn't. My dad, Marcus, drove buses by day, fixed boilers by night, and made sure I never went to school hungry. On weekends, he'd scrounge up old math books from the library discard pile, never the newest editions, but I ate them up like they were fresh off the press. I remember one night I cracked an algebra problem in a way my teacher never showed me, held it up to Dad, and his eyes just lit up, pride chasing away the tired lines on his face. "That's my girl," he'd say, "always finding your own way." But you know how it is. Schools don't always know what to do with kids who don't fit the mold. At Roosevelt Middle, my math teacher, Ms. Williams, was the only one who didn't roll her eyes when I finished the worksheet before she finished writing the instructions. She saw something in me, handed me her own college number theory book, told me, "You're going to have to carve out your own space in this world, Amara. Folks don't always make room for black girls who think different." That stung, but she was right. Then came the flyer, Harvard's Young Mathematicians Program for Gifted Middle Schoolers. Ms. Williams practically shoved it in my hands, said she'd handle the fee, the paperwork, whatever it took. I didn't believe Harvard would take someone like me, but she did. She even went toe-to-toe with Principal Davis when he tried to suggest vocational school instead. "With all due respect, sir," she said, "Amara is the brightest mind I've seen in 15 years. That's how I ended up staring at a Harvard acceptance letter, hands trembling. Dad behind me telling me, 'Whatever it says, I'm proud of you.' When I read those words I got in, I thought I might float right out of that kitchen. First day at Harvard, man. Talk about feeling like you don't belong. Ivy everywhere, students looking like they'd stepped out of some catalog expensive blazer shoes that cost more than our monthly rent. When the program director checked the list and saw Amara Johnson, Roosevelt Middle, Dorchester, she barely hid her surprise. Scholarship entry, she announced loud enough for the whole room to hear. I heard the whispers. Diversity case janitor's kid probably lost. I just kept my head up, tried to remember what Dad said. Stand tall. Your mind belongs anywhere it can grow. And then there was Professor Harrington, silver hair, sharp eyes, voice like cold steel. "You've been selected for your supposed gifts," he said, "but you'll be judged by your thinking, not your transcripts." When he called roll, Phillips Academy, Boston Latin, Windsor School, he got to me and just said, "Roosevelt Middle." And kept going. The lecture started, and every time I raised my hand, he looked right through me. When I finally blurted out my idea on a prime number problem, he shut me down hard. "Perhaps you should stick to the basics, Miss Johnson." It was humiliating, but you know what I mean, right? Like, you can feel people rooting for you to fail. Thing is, I'd promised myself I'd solve something impossible one day, and there it was. The Hamilton-Watanabe conjecture, the impossible problem unsolved for decades, even by Harrington himself. He pitched it like a dare to the room. Not even I have solved it. I left that first day crushed and fired up all at once. Yeah, they didn't think I belonged, but they hadn't seen what I could do. At home, I covered my bedroom walls in notebook paper equations spilling everywhere. Dad would peek in, shake his head, and bring me food. "Don't let them limit you," he said. "Some folks say impossible just because it's impossible for them." I believed him. Even when Victoria the Queen Bee from Windsor and her friends tried to break me down in the hallway, must be charity week, right? I kept grinding. There was one day a real turning point. Professor Harrington brought in Dr. Carter, a legend, first black woman to get tenure in Harvard's math department. She caught me working through a problem before class and actually listened to my ideas. No smirk, no maybe later. She saw my notes, nodded, said, "This is creative thinking, Amara. Unorthodox, but that's how mathematics moves forward." And she meant it. She invited me to her office, and for the first time, someone at Harvard treated me like a peer, not a case. With Dr. Carter's mentorship, everything changed. I started to see a way through the Hamilton-Watanabe mess, a different angle, looking at quantum spaces and primes, not as separate, but as connected in a whole new mathematical dimension. Samuel, a quiet kid from Boston, Latin, started working with me after Professor Harrington dumped him into my group. He didn't care about the drama, just loved the math. For hours, we'd sit sketching proofs, poking holes in each other's logic, getting more excited with every step. Of course, Victoria didn't let up. It's embarrassing watching her try, she'd sneer. But even her partner Connor started looking uncomfortable after a while. See, that's the thing about truth. It has a way of leaking out. When presentation day came, I was ready and terrified. My name wasn't on the official schedule. Professor Harrington figured I didn't have anything worth sharing, but Dr. Carter had my back. As Harrington started wrapping up, I stood up, voice shaking but clear, and said I'd like to present my solution. You could have heard a pin drop. Harrington tried to shut it down, but Dr. Carter cut in. Academic inquiry demands we consider serious approaches, so he gave me 5 minutes. I laid it all out. My approach, the math, the whole leap into new territory. At first, dead silence, then whispers. Then a voice from the back, "Let her defend the proof." Dr. Abernathy, some math legend. And suddenly, instead of dismissing me, they were asking real questions, hard ones. I answered every one, diagrams, flying chalk dust everywhere. It stopped being about a little black girl from Dorchester and started being about mathematics, the beautiful, elegant logic I'd chased since I was a kid. When I finished, the applause started slow, then swept the room. Even Harrington, jaw clenched, had to acknowledge the creativity, couldn't bring himself to admit I was right, but it didn't matter. The dean set up a committee to review my proof, and a week later, Dr. Carter called to say they'd validated it. Revolutionary, they called it. Reporters started showing up. Harvard's president offered me a custom program, full support, the works. Victoria even came by Dr. Carter's office, apologized, sort of. And Dad. When the story hit the news, he hugged me so tight I thought I'd crack. "You showed them baby girl," he said, tears streaming. Ms. Williams brought cupcakes. Samuel told me he was going to try a few impossible problems of his own. Even Harrington changed, started a program to find mathematical talent in public schools. Now, if you ask me how it felt, it wasn't about proving Harrington wrong or even seeing my name in the papers. It was about finding the truth in a world that doesn't always want to see it. Truth that doesn't care what you look like, where you're from, or who your parents are. The impossible just needed someone who didn't know it was impossible. And if you're still with me, if this story sparked something in you, let's talk about what's really possible, not just in math, but everywhere. Comment below, what do you think? Is it the math that matters, or who gets to do it? Does real justice mean more than just solving problems on paper? Share your thoughts, your stories, because I'm telling you, brilliance is everywhere. It just needs a chance to shine.